Hey, this Realm of the Mist podcast is brought to you proudly by the Nurses Guild.
Hi, this is Eddie Deason. You're listening to Breaking the Fourth Wall. I was Mandark in Dexter's Laboratory. Ha 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 ha.
Hey, what's up, guys? Christopher Stolle back for another Breaking the Fourth Wall. Forgive my background. My little viewer thing wanted to erase me from the program, which I guess is fine because my mother said I had a face for radio. With me today is a guy who comes from the same world I did in some way, shape, or form. He was and probably still can be a referee for, I believe it was Keystone Wrestling Federation?
Keystone State Wrestling Alliance, the KSWA out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
There you go. Mr. David Fedor. David, how you doing today?
Doing well, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Now, it's funny because like you were just saying, you should have put on your Penguins hat because we could have had a little interstate wars here. As I was a wrestler who started my career in the Philadelphia area, and here across the interstate, you were starting pretty much your career damn near at the same time.
Yeah,
in Pittsburgh, on the other side of the state. So.
Yeah, so nice Turnpike series we got going on right now.
What drew you to pro wrestling? What made you decide not only to be be involved in the wrestling scene, but to go the ways of a manager, or not a manager, a referee?
Well, ever since I was a kid, that was like the first form of entertainment I was gravitated towards. I grew up in the rock and wrestling era. Hulk Hogan was larger than life, Macho Man, Ultimate Warrior, Brutus Beefcake, all those iconic, cartoonesque wrestlers. The British Bulldogs were my favorite tag team. Their feud with the Hart Foundation was what solidified me as a wrestling fan. And from there, that's what I grew up really watching. Of course, you know, like everybody, interest goes in and out. But wrestling has always been one of my first loves. The way I got hooked up with the KSWA, I was a performer. I did comedy in Pittsburgh and did live shows, improv shows, and things like that. And I would go to the KSWA shows just as a fan and watching, and realized that there was something there. There was some kind of magic that was happening in this Moose Lodge in Lawrenceville. All these hipsters drinking and yelling, and like it was this magic environment. So I started filming comedy bits there at the shows, just in the audience, myself and my one of the comedy partners that I had, and we were just having a good time. And eventually they pulled me aside and like worked me in a little bit, and it was like we made some fun videos, some good comedy stuff. And then they needed a referee, and they knew my performing background. They knew my love of wrestling, and started training me to be a referee. And from there, it just took off.
It's kind of funny with a skill set as a stand-up comedian. I would have more imagined they would have put you in a role of like manager position, because I could see like, you know, mic command skills, promo skills of a stand-up comedian coming in handy with being kind of a Bobby the Brain Heenan-esque style heel manager. So it's funny they went referee.
Yeah, I think there was a need. There was a need for the referee, and you don't just bring anybody off the street and give them the keys to too much too soon. So I'm sure if that would have been something I pursued, I could have worked. And hey, I'm still young. I could still be one of those old guys walking around the ring with a cane and being a manager 10 years from now.
Right on, yeah.
but I really took to being a referee because it's kind of like the unsung hero, the flying under the radar kind of guy, the third guy in the ring, that it's part of the performance. I don't want to say performance because
I know.
but in terms of from my background of comedy, yeah, it's part of the sport. Yeah, it was awesome. And the KSWA specifically is unique in that it kind of has its roots in old school Pittsburgh studio wrestling. Like there's the aspect of the local tradition, the local, like with Bruno Sammartino, Chili Billy, all those old black and white awesome videos and awesome things. Georgie Animal Steel, like jumping Johnny DeFazio, like guys like that. And so this presentation it was more than just your regular indie show. You had the characters, you had the theatrics, you had the matches, and everything was all a lot of fun. So it was like, I've enjoyed my time there. It's been, ton of years now. What is it, 2020? Like it's a lot of fun.
Well, let me delve a little deep here. Let's pull back kayfabe a slight bit here.
Okay.
In the sense of like, and I'll give an example of what I mean by this question before you answer it. When did the kayfabe curtain officially drop for you, where you saw wrestling in a light more than just what's usually presented on TV or whatever else? And as an example, when I was 14 years old, I was part of a naval youth group called the United States Naval Sea Cadet Corps. One of the officers that were volunteers of it were also a manager for an indie federation out of New Jersey. And one night they invited me to come see one of their matches, one of their shows. And the main event match was Warlock versus Mr. Tony Atlas, or Mr. USA Tony Atlas, in the steel cage. The curtain was dropped for me at 14 years old, because after that show I went with the manager that I went with and all the guys that did the show to a little pizzeria in South Philly, and we all sat there eating and joking and getting along with each other, and I realized these guys don't hate each other. That was where kayfabe dropped for me. Yeah. Where was it for you? Where was the day that you were like, oh, that's how this works?
It wasn't a light switch moment for me. It was probably just one of those realizations with age that comes kind of. It was probably my dad probably smarted me up on something and was just like, that's fake or whatever. I hate the F word, but it's like that. It was never a big reveal, like anything dramatic, like you said. But I do remember when it was definitely real, when the Bulldogs got screwed out of the titles with Danny Davis, and I was sitting there on the floor crying as I'm watching the TV, and my mom's like, "Go outside." I'm like, "You don't understand. Dynamite. They busted him up, and they 2-on-1, and the crooked ref, blah blah blah." So I remember all that stuff. I remember going to the matches at the Civic Arena with my dad. We'd always get that month's WWF magazine and take a little brown bag of snacks, and it was like Little Debbie's, Star Crunch, and stuff in there. And I remember seeing in the early 90s when Ric Flair had his 1-year run in WWE, the Hogan and Flair was one of the main events for Civic Arena that I saw. And then Bulldogs and Heart Foundation in a steel cage was one of the things. So it's like that. Those memories are still there. Finding out it's a type of entertainment, I don't remember. I'm sure it was probably somewhere in between the Attitude Era and the Rock and Wrestling Era. That 92 new era, new generation was probably where I was like, wait a second.
Well, I mean, I didn't necessarily mean that you found out that it was, and I hate the F word too. I always use the term for people if they want to argue the point is stunt work.
Yeah.
Or
it's a cooperative, active.
It's a performing art.
Performance. Yeah. It's
performing art.
And it hurts. I mean, even as a referee, you need to be in shape, and you're in there running your ass off, and it's.
I know.
any
Can't
part
fake
of
a
it.
chair shot.
You can't fake any of it.
Can't fake gravity.
Yeah.
But no, that's why I was interested, because when you were doing the outside of the ring comedy spots for yourself and all that, and that drew the attention of the Federation, that in turn drew you into the Federation itself. I was wondering if at any point, like when they were like, look, come here, kid, that you finally like looked at it and it's like realized, like, I remember the first time, the best way I could describe it is the first time I walked into the GWA sweatbox when I got offered to be trained. And I looked at that facility in South Philadelphia, 9th and Passyunk, and wow, Ric Flair lied to me. This place was a hole in the wall with a falling apart practice ring. Surprised the cockroaches weren't pulling spots in the ring. And I'm sitting there like, this is pro wrestling. That was really where I got the realization that just like, minor league baseball or underground music, that pro wrestling has its starting points, and it is not glamorous. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, so. The comedy sketches that I was doing. So when I would go to the shows, it was my friend and I. We played brothers, and we were super fans of the KSWA. And we would just film some of the action, film ourselves in our seats, and we were just over the top, typical wrestling fans. And the guys would see us and see it on YouTube and be like, oh, and we noticed month after month as the year progressed, they started playing towards us because it was, an extra layer of advertisement that they were getting out of it. And we would yell and give them hell and play along as well. So it was a lot of fun. It was like one of these,
you kind of became Hat Guy in ECW.
Yeah, something like that. I was Wild Bill. My friend John was Mark. So we were Wild Bill and Mark, and we did it. It was a fun thing, right? So every end of the year in December, the KSWA has a big Fan Fest show, and that's when they bring in some of the national guys. They have a Toy Fest fundraiser for toys for local kids for the holidays, things like that. The month before, they were like, hey, are you going to be here next month? And we're like, yeah. And at this point, we had they never stopped us from filming or doing any of our things. We never really asked permission to do so. So it was cool that they let us, but never once did we coordinate anything.
Right.
And during our year, we told storylines from our perspective as fans. Like my brother and I, there was a girl, like a girlfriend for my brother's character or whatever. And we had all the storylines going on and stuff. And they ended up announcing that I got to be a guest ring announcer, and my brother, Mark, would be the guest barber for a hair versus hair match.
Oh, geez.
So it went from, like he went to prison, he learned a trade. It was barbering because I got my hair cut during the year. It was a hum. So then they worked that into this thing. And before we knew it, before anybody ever had any kind of handshake or any kind of anything, I found myself in the ring doing an announcement while my comedy partner is shaving somebody's head that we've never met, never had a conversation with. And it was just one of those, wow, this is fun type things. So that was kind of like how we got our feet wet in terms of, I still work with them. My friend John doesn't. So.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's honestly one of the few matches I've never been involved with as a hair versus hair match. But nobody wanted to cut that rat's nest that I had in my years of wrestling. But I mean, like, how is it interacting in the ring as a referee with some of the talent and personalities in the ring? The reason I asked, there was a referee in Colorado, Pat Caesar. Great guy. He was hugely great guy. Salt of the earth would give you the shirt off his back, like one of the greatest guys on the planet. deeply, deeply religious person. And I had an alternate gimmick that I would play called the 13th Apostle, Christian Draconis. And this gimmick was, he was intended to be kind of like an Undertaker in his heyday, like the larger than life, you could feel the evil coming off him type character, supernatural.
Okay.
And that gimmick scared the living shit out of poor Pat Caesar. Pat loved me to death, but when I put on the makeup and the outfit and I would come out to the ring, he would actively avoid me because it literally scared the hell out of him.
That's funny.
You have any character interactions like that where it almost broke kayfabe in the sense of like, I'm just not toying with that?
I mean, yeah, there's guys that come through, and some guys in the locker room that you definitely don't want to be on the bad side of, or upset. One that comes to mind, he's a local Pittsburgh legend. His name is T. Ranchula. He's, been in, he's gone in the national circuit a lot, too. He wrestled, I think, the Big Show when he was the Giant in WCW.
Okay.
And he did, I want to say, yeah, he wrestled The Rock on Sunday Night Heat, and he kicked out of the Rock bottom because it was like way before the Rock was the Rock. He was still in the Nation and stuff. So it's on YouTube and stuff. It's fun. Yeah. But and he had a couple of matches with Mick Foley with PWX when that was running locally, and he's like, I'm 6'3", 6'4", so I'm way too tall to be a referee to begin with, and he's a good 5-6 inches taller than me. And comes to all the shows and is on his motorcycle and stuff. And he's, one of the locker room leaders. He's been in the business for decades. And he has one of the hardest chops I've ever seen, and had the unfortunate pleasure to receive. So he also does this Nacho City gimmick where he'll take nachos from somebody ringside and smash it in his opponent's face. I've gotten that before, but we were in the ring, and the match spilled out to the floor, and his opponent was running away, and he didn't get a chance to get his hands on him. So he was upset. The crowd was John and yelling, and all of a sudden I hear a couple people start yelling, hit the ref, hit the ref, hit the ref. And then I kind of give one of these side views and like start shaking my head, and then the whole crowd just starts going nuts, and they're all chanting hit the ref, and he looks at me and he kind of like shrugs. I'm like, damn it. So he backs me up into the corner, and he just wails, and it was the loudest. I literally felt the chop in my back before I felt it on my chest. That's how hard his chop was. And it was awful. And I just like crumpled in the corner, and everybody's cheering. And then a one more time chant broke up. And to this day, I don't know why I didn't roll out of the ring before the one more time chant caught on. So then I got a second, and then I was just like, get me the hell out of here.
How long did it take for the bruise to go away?
Oh, I still have it. It's right under here.
Yeah. I still have the bruise from Harley Race. He got me in EWA. And at the time I was 126 pounds soaking wet, and we're doing a mock match in the training facility, and he's a guest and everything. He looks at me and he says, I want that kid. I said, oh great, and I'm green as shit, so I'm not going to argue with the man. But all of a sudden he goes over to a concrete pillar, and he starts slapping it with his hand, toughening up his hand. I said, what are you doing? He said, you like to do flips? I like to do chops. I took about 7 of them. And I swear to God, it took a month and a half for my chest to stop changing colors of bruising before the handprint finally went away.
But you do it again now.
Oh, absolutely. Harley's a legend, and he gave me credit that I didn't cry in front of him.
Yeah, that's awesome. In front of him.
In front of him.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I've luckily with KSWA, the guys who run that place, they're really good with bringing in the legends like that, like Bruno Sammartino, Georgie Animal Steel, Dominic DiNucci, We've had
when you had George and you gave him his gimmick turnbuckle, did he remember which one it was? He didn't do it for us.
That was before my time, so I don't have any George Steele stories. But he was good friends with the guys there.
Yeah, I was still ring crew and training at the time that we had George Steele,
And you're like, no, that one.
Yeah, Izzy Avalis had just bought all brand new turnbuckles, and we put a false one up there for George to tear apart. And long story short, I'm not going to bore everybody out, but as the show's going on, he's pulling false eat in corners, and he get cut off or whatever. And then finally, there's a spot where he's supposed to rip it open, and he's in the exact opposite corner that he's supposed to be. He ripped up a brand new turnbuckle pad. And I looked over at my promoter, Izzy, who was watching the show, and I'd never seen a Puerto Rican turn whiter. That was a lot of money for that turnbuckle.
Oh man, that's funny. We had so when I was there, when I was refereeing, I got a chance to work Hacksaw Jim Duggan match.
Nice.
So he came to, this was probably 2013, I want to say, something like that. No, it had to be later than that. Regardless, so he comes down and he has his America gimmick and everything, and he was wrestling Nasty Nick Crane, one of our local guys who's been in the scene for decades as well, and he was doing a Canadian thing, so it was perfect pairing. And I remember he came out and he had his 2x4 and he had his American flag, right? And he comes in the ring and chases out Nasty Nick Crane with his 2x4, and then again, and like I was the head referee at the time, and like I didn't play it up like I was a heel. I just played it up like, you know, I'm the stupidest guy in the room. You want the ref to be the stupidest guy in the room. So it was always like children's theater, behind you type stuff, like, what? So the fans love giving me shit. So of course they yell at Hacksaw Jim Duggan to go after me. And so he comes swinging at me with his 2x4 without any words notice or anything like that. And he comes, and I'm like running around. I'm like, no, you gotta move. And I got my hands up like this, and then he starts coming at my toes, and he just starts, and I'm like jumping and going after my feet. And I have a picture of that, of me dancing as he's hitting at my feet. And I was like, that's one of the most brilliant things, improvising with Hacksaw Jim Duggan in the middle of Fan Fest with hundreds of people laughing. And then he beat Nasty Nick, of course. And I raised his hand, and I remember raising his hand and looking into the crowd, and I saw my brother. And, you know, 30 years of watching wrestling together, and I'm holding Hacksaw Jim Duggan's hand, and I was like, oh, holy shit. It was just like one of those fun moments.
That was going to be my next question for you, is throughout the time that you were refereeing specifically, is there a particular time where you kind of almost, obviously you got to keep professionalism when you're doing the show, even in comedy spots, but was there any points where you were kind of marking out like, holy shit, I'm here with this person watching this person and that person, and
yeah,
you know, like,
well,
you know, like the Hacksaw Jim Duggan, I grew up watching him, and now I'm raising his hand, like,
right, yeah. It's like, this guy won the Royal Rumble, right? Like, he was the first one, right? So that would have definitely been one of them. And then another one was, we had Ricky Steamboat, and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was there. And this was maybe, you know, a couple years after that, maybe like 2015, 2016. And he wasn't working. He just had made an appearance, did a speech, and signed autographs and things like that, was sitting at the gimmick table. And during one of the matches, he did a spot with the heel manager outside the ring, and he, you know, knocked him out or whatever. And I remember, as the ref, I was distracted, you know, by this outside interference going on, and then the, you know, pinfall happened behind me. And I remember watching Ricky Steamboat grab Tommy Fame and go back and have his big, huge swing back and open up, and the classic Ricky Steamboat pose, his foot kicks up and he lays it in, and Tommy Fame, you know, crumbles to the ground. And I remember just like being in awe of how smooth Ricky Steamboat was. You know, this is how many years? This is several years after his comeback at WrestleManias and things like that. And it was just like, it took my breath away. And then I hear the guys behind me going, Fedor, the cover. And it was like, oh shit, I really was distracted by this. But yeah, that would have been another moment where it was like, wow.
I luckily in my career, I'd never gotten that starstruck. Like, I've met AJ Styles when he was still part of the NWA, and you know, I think the closest I ever got, which was actually a funny story, was in Rocky Mountain Championship Wrestling when I first won the interregional title. And it was a year-long story arc of blood feud with the guy who was previously champion. It was a great story. And this is during the day of MySpace. And all of a sudden I get a message on MySpace when I posted the pictures of me holding the title. And I get a message from a guy from Chicago saying, oh, man, that's great that you won the title. Congratulations and everything else. I didn't know who the hell he was. I thought it was a mark. And I'm like, cool, thanks. You know, I appreciate it. You know, I wasn't trying to be a dick, but I was, you know, it was one of those deals of like, I don't want to talk to a fan.
Yeah.
Come to find out later, it was CM Punk.
Oh.
Yeah, you know.
That guy from Chicago.
That guy from Chicago.
Oh, okay.
It was during the time when he was still part of Ring of Honor, I believe. And all that, and he was. I thought he was just marking out for the belt. I didn't realize he was actually congratulating me.
Yeah,
yeah. So I didn't know who he was. I felt so terrible afterwards. I'm like, holy shit! But the closest I ever came to marking out, and really losing myself from the professionalism of the profession, was as a thank you for the services I did for Rocky Mountain. They were supposed to give me one of my dream matches. They had booked Marty Jannetty, and they were going to give me the match against him. Now, of course, I was going to do the honors and everything else, but it was just like, holy shit, you know, I'm a huge Rockers fan. Of course I want to wrestle Marty Jannetty. Fortunately, he canceled last minute, so I never got the chance. But like when the promoter, Blind Mike, turned around and told me he's giving me Jannetty, like I needed adult diapers that day. Like, I was so excited.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So disappointed. But I mean, now you're still with Keystone. Are you still refereeing?
So I've transitioned from a refereeing position to we'll call it a backstage official position. So I'm still in the refereeing, but I'm also helping out my good friend Yinza, the Pittsburgh Luchador, with his career as a professional wrestler. So.
Kind of like a promoter and publicist.
Yeah, like I handle his social media pages and take pictures for him, stuff like that. Help him with his bags if he needs them.
All right, so you call him the Pittsburgh Luchador.
Yes.
Is it because he's from Pittsburgh, or is he actually a trained luchador? Is he from like Mexico area?
He is not Mexican. He is definitely Pittsburgh. He's just definitely from Pittsburgh, and he's very influenced with luchador style. So he does his best efforts to be a luchador.
He follows all the traditions
and tiptoes the line of doing his best not to be offensive to anybody with any kind of he's from Pittsburgh.
Well, I'm sure he's not, like, you know, for lack of a better term here, I'm sure he's not cultural appropriating.
Yeah, we're not cultural appropriating anything. Yeah.
Because anybody could be a luchador as long as you train under that style and tradition, right? If I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah.
So basically, you don't necessarily have to be from Mexico to be a luchador.
Correct.
You just have to respect the traditions of the luchador to become a luchador, correct?
Right. Correct. Right.
Okay. Has he trained under professional luchadors? Or? Who's his
no.
trainer?
The KSWA has a wonderful training program, and he's come up through those ranks. So he hasn't had any official luchador training.
Well, that's a great thing we can promote right there. The KSWA training facility. Tell me about that. The local area. Give me some information on that for anybody listening to the show that may be interested in becoming part of the pro wrestling experience, be it a worker, a referee, a manager, a valet, or hell, even somebody behind the scenes.
Yeah, the Keystone State Wrestling Alliance. You can find all the information at kswa.net. Unfortunately, a lot of things have been shut down, obviously, for this past year. So we haven't had any shows since February. Some of the local promotions in Ohio, West Virginia, other parts of Western Pennsylvania have started doing outdoor shows, some of the drive-in places and things like that. So right now it's not feasible for the KSWA to be doing any of that. Our home was the Spirit Lounge in downtown Pittsburgh, in the Lawrenceville section of Pittsburgh. So there hasn't been any activity there. I'm in touch with Bobby O, the owner, from time to time, and I don't know when we're going to be up and running again. But
do KSWA broadcast or put up on YouTube, anything like that, anywhere anybody could find some of their not projects, but some of their shows or maybe matches?
There haven't been too many streaming. There's a gentleman, Tom Davenport, who records the shows and sells DVDs at the shows and things like that. But especially with what's going on now with COVID and everything, I think we're all trying to figure out what the next way to get the product out there, because I don't know when the next time we'll be able to pack hundreds of people in a small room that is already to fire code. What's the COVID code going to be? So we're not everything, and that's all above my pay grade anyway, so I have no information about that anyway. So
no, I was just curious, in case anybody was curious to see if does Keystone come out of the Pittsburgh area? I know some federations that I've worked for, they didn't necessarily stay in their home cities or even home states. So what about KSWA? Do they venture outside their normal territories when they
anywhere Western Pennsylvania is where we've gone in the past. We've gone as north as almost Tioga by Allegheny National Forest. But there's in Pittsburgh itself, there's probably a handful of other groups. So there's a couple different places that we don't run because other feds run. But we run downtown. We run the neighborhoods downtown. We do a lot out of Lawrenceville, Bloomfield, and those places. So it's out towards the airport a little bit. But it's generally Pittsburgh proper, greater Pittsburgh area, and some Western Pennsylvania shows, depending on where we get booked. We've had last year, not counting 2020, obviously, but 2019, we had 25, 26 shows, something like that. So it was, one of those twice a month. During the summer, obviously, you're going to have more shows. But yeah, it's fun to keep it, definitely enough to keep us busy. So.
Well, the next question I've got to ask is, when do you think it's enough, or is there ever going to be a time where it's like, maybe it's time for me to step down? Like myself, when I stepped down, I did it for personal reasons before my body gave out on me.
Yeah.
Which is why I always say I've got one more good one left in me, because I stopped before I wound up walking like Mick Foley. But at the same indifference, I didn't have to retire when I did. I chose 2012 to retire for getting married, having children, stuff like that. But what about you? What's going to be the day, if it ever comes, that you turn around and say, you know what, it's time to pass the torch?
I had my first son in 2015 and just had a second now. Thank you. In April of 2020. So those were some lulls in my activity and my career. And right before this COVID stuff happened, it was like, you know, stuff was kicking into high gear with my friend Yinza. And I don't know what's going to happen with that now that once things open up again. I could see another 5 years of that. I'm not young. I started 20 years too late. I was telling stories of how I was watching Hulk Hogan and things when I was a kid. So you could probably figure out that I'm closer to becoming a manager than I am
ever getting.
Yeah, I'm not moving to Florida to try to join any kind of what's that place for?
Elderly communities.
I was gonna say the performance center. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that too.
Yeah. So I in no way has my passion of professional wrestling ever been I need to sign with a big name. No, I'm not worried about auditioning or trying out or going for anything like that. Would I? Of course. But that's not why I do it. I do it because I love it. I do it because there's nothing like being in the center of a 20 foot by 20 foot square when 500 people are focused their energy on every single move that's going on, every single step that's being taken there. That's a rush and a feeling that you can't describe, even though I'm trying to right now.
No, I get it.
The as a sketch comedian, improv comedian, I was used to performing in front of people. When you start adding adrenaline to that, and you start adding athleticism to that, it increases that to a whole new level that is ridiculously addicting. So would I ever give that up? No. Do I understand why people chase that in forms of drugs and other substances? Yes, because it is addicting.
I absolutely agree, because when I first broke into the business, I was a musician. And of course, I'd gone up and done shows and stuff like that to local bars where people really didn't give two shits about me. I was just background noise while they were getting drunk. You know, and you're right. I will never forget my first ever match, which was a complete clusterfuck. It was 30-second squash. You know, had my ass handed to me by a guy dressed like a mobster. He was called the Don. And literally, I could describe the match for you. That's how short it was. I come out to the ring, and nobody knows who the hell I am. And then he comes out, sneaks up behind me, hits me with a violin case. The bell rings. He pins me. It's over. That was literally my first match.
Yeah.
But I was able, in that short amount of time before he hit me with the violin case, to get the crowd to hate him, which was my job. You know, and then he hit me, and the crowd oohed and awed, and I laid there, and I heard the count, and it was over, and I'm selling it while he's celebrating. And in my mind, all I thought was, this is all I need. This is literally all I need, because it literally clicked. And you're right. There's nothing on the planet in any form of entertainment that can compare to being in that ring, and for that 30 seconds, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, you know, that you're out there, that you are the center focus of these people, and you literally are controlling their emotions.
Yeah.
And they're so appreciative to it. There's no greater feeling on the planet. There are days I still go through withdrawals from it. I can't watch old wrestling videos because of the fact I'm like, I want to go do that again.
Yeah. And especially this year when it's taken away, not on your own terms, it's added. We do a yearly show in Homestead. It's called the Brawl Under the Bridge.
is going on, minions? Mike here for Misery Point Radio, and you're listening to the Coast to Coast Power Hour on the SJ Network. Now, I know what you're thinking. Mike, what the F is a Coast to Coast Power Hour? Well, my uneducated and uninformed friend, the Coast to Coast Power Hour is a Borg-like collective of epic podcasters from epic podcasts that have all come together to discuss the important things in life. Pop culture, current events, random awesomeness, stuff like that. Trust me, you need this in your life. For more information on this show and all the shows on the Coast to Coast Power Hour, as well as on the SJ Network, reach out to publicist Steve Joyner at www.s-j-network.com or stevesjnetwork@gmail.com. No need to thank me. I'm just out here, changing lives.
The following is an important message from the Nurses Guild of Florida. We know COVID has many scared. Many of our seniors are even afraid to go to the doctors. Just the thought of being exposed to all the people in the waiting room, in addition to the doctor's staff, is a risk many don't want to take right now. However, putting off health care makes most conditions worse. The Nurses Guild has the solution. One that exposes you to just one person. Call your doctor's office and have them order a nursing assessment from the Nurses Guild. We are a 5-star Medicare home health agency. Your registered nurse in full PPE will perform a full head-to-toe assessment, vital signs and medication review, pulse oximetry, even an EKG if needed. Lab work and x-rays can also be done at home. Our registered nurse will discuss all of this strictly and directly with your doctor and get you results. All of our nurses and home health aides are fully screened, supervised, and COVID tested. Call the Nurses Guild today to arrange your home health visit at 954-596-9806 in Broward County and 561-826-8937 in Palm Beach County. Remember, healthcare put off is healthcare too late. Stay safe during the pandemic. Wear a mask and insist those around you wear a mask. Wash your hands frequently and stay home as much as possible.
And it's an outside venue. It's under one of the main bridges in the Pittsburgh area. And there was, I think, 2 years ago, like over 800 people packed under this bridge. And we had Nikolai Volkov and Demolition Axe.
Nice.
And I got to referee Demolition Axe's last singles match. He ended up doing a match with Smash later on that year. But it was like, I go back and I look at those pictures and I see myself standing in that ring and seeing the sea of people and just thinking, it's going to be another 2 years until that amount of people are going to be allowed to be anywhere. Right. Or comfortable enough to be anywhere, or safe enough to be anywhere. Like, even if, vaccinations happen and blah, 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 and it's still people, I don't see people being that readily willing to do that. Like, you could have the Moose Hall shows, get, 300 people and maybe like get something like that. But like, it's kind of a bummer. And I don't want to think about that.
Well, besides the two kids, obviously one very newborn this year, what have you been doing to occupy your time until the day that, we could have wrestling events and all that again and return back to your career?
Well, I work in marketing outside of my professional wrestling career, and got laid off during the pandemic as well. So at the beginning of the year, so I've been raising the two kids while my wife is working. And since you do have a video feed for your podcast, I'm sure viewers can see the Bee Gees things behind me. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge Bee Gees fan because every single professional wrestler that I've met also is a Bee Gees fan. So it makes sense.
We don't know why it makes sense, but it
right.
is something that's there.
Mm-hmm. So I've had this weird, strange, I don't want to say obsession with the Bee Gees, but I've followed them for 30 years, since the early 90s. And not just like everybody knows them as the disco band, but they have 40-year catalog, and here they all are right there. There's all kinds of books, and they've just been fascinating to me. So I have started writing a memoir from my perspective as a Bee Gees fan, as a straight white male grown up in a small Pittsburgh town, 20 years after the height of the Bee Gees career themselves. Like, I was the only Bee Gees fan I knew for 20 years until I met somebody else and was like, oh my God, you like what I like? So it's always been this weird story after story. So it's a collection of short stories about myself being a Bee Gees fan, and it's called Bee Gees and Me. I started a Facebook group and a couple different social media accounts. So I've been working on that. I've been working on getting that finished. I have a couple screenplays that are in the works, but I wouldn't say anything is, any close to being done yet. But yeah, so doing a lot of writing, doing more.
Have you put any of this in the hands of any of the surviving members of the Bee Gees?
No, not yet. I have had stuff reshared and retweeted by the actual Bee Gees social media pages, which aren't run by them. They're run by Capitol Records or whoever social media team is doing their stuff. So I've had some connections with some people in certain circles, but I haven't had the pleasure of talking to anybody related to to Barry Gibb or anything.
Okay.
That's one of the dreams. If something leads to that, that would be awesome.
Well, just remember us if we're the ones that connect you.
Yeah. So Barry, if you're listening to Chris's podcast, Barry, come on, give me a call.
I'd be very shocked if he was listening to my but no, truth be told, isn't there also, and maybe I'm not remembering correctly from when we had our conversation a couple days ago, isn't there also a podcast in the works?
Yeah, so I'm part of the stuff that I'm doing to promote this book that will be out. I'm starting a podcast, connecting with other fans, hearing their stories, and kind of like I said, I hadn't known many Bee Gees fans over the course of the 30 years that I've liked them. So hearing their stories is also fascinating to me, trying to figure out why I have bookcases full of stuff, like investigating what the collecting addiction is. But yeah, I'm meeting some awesome people, and hopefully, and I'm going to be talking with somebody that was in Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. There was a movie that the Bee Gees starred in 1978 that was this wonderfully awesome piece of work. Did I say wonderfully awesome? I meant wonderfully awful piece of work. It's highly regarded as one of the worst movies ever made, but it's fabulous. It's the cheesiest, most campy. Yeah, a mutual friend of ours introduced me to her, and
you can say his name, Steve Joyner.
Yeah.
We give him credit on this show.
That's right. So he connected me with a guest that I'll be speaking with on the Bee Gees and Me podcast that will be coming out later this year.
Nice.
Actually, go ahead.
What platform are you going to be releasing on? Are you going to be doing audio only, like through Anchor or Podbean, or are you going to be doing like a YouTube or like I do? Or
yeah, this it'll probably be through Libsyn. So it'll be Apple, Google, YouTube, Spotify. Right. I'm doing another podcast as well. It's called List Rate Rank. If we're at the plug part of the show, I might as well plug that as well.
Well, we're talking about what you do. I mean,
yeah. So this is what's been keeping me busy. List Rate Rank is a ranking podcast that I do with a wonderfully hilarious comedian, Felicia Gillespie. The two of us research a topic and bring top 5 lists to debate with each other to what should be the top 5 of that topic. From there, we loop in a guest expert in that field, present our list to them, and they laugh at us and say, you guys are idiots who did all your research on Wikipedia. And we're like, yeah, got us. And then they school us and tell us what the actual top 5 things are. So we've done, we've talked with a Martian scientist from the United Kingdom about the planet Mars. We've talked to an expert. This Bee Gees book right here, the guy who, one of the authors of that book, we spoke with him about the Bee Gees. We've covered marketing blunders. We've talked about how to quit your job and starting your own business. We've talked about, like, there's no topic left unturned. We could talk about everything. So it's Chris, we should have you on, and we could talk about the best wrestlers to come out of Philadelphia, or something.
East Coast Kid, Matt Wild.
What's that?
The East Coast Kid, Matt Wild. There, we did the show. Yeah, right. I wasn't even the best wrestler in Colorado, whether or Philadelphia. No, but that's awesome. I'd love to do your show. It sounds interesting just because I'd love to pretend to be an expert on something I probably know nothing about.
And that's part of it too. If it's like we throw around the term guest expert, but like, I mean, legitimately, we had, like I said, he's from the United Kingdom, but they don't have NASA there. They have Eurospace or whatever their version of NASA is. But it was like I posted something and it was like, hey, we're having this conversation about Mars, blah blah. And he's like, oh, I'll talk about it. I'm like, what are your credentials? And he's like, I'm a doctorate from what's the Cambridge or something like that. He's like, I'm a doctor from Cambridge and I work for European NASA, and parts of the rover that's on NASA or on Mars right now, I helped build. I'm like, okay, you're qualified. We'll talk with you.
Yeah. I seen the movie The Martian once. Does that count?
I one of the things that we talk about was growing potatoes on Mars and your own shit. So that's actually going to be out next week. I think that episode is coming out. So Ricky Bahia was his name. Awesome dude. But yeah, like that's the stuff that's keeping me busy. Like, I want to talk with people who are passionate about things that they do, because to me, nothing else is as fascinating as hearing somebody describe or passionately talk about what they do. Try to write, and hopefully, be a good husband and a good father in the meantime, or be a good husband and father first, and then this stuff in the meantime. Whoever's listening right now, sorry,
I'll edit that in case your wife's listening.
Yeah, she won't listen.
It's like my wife, actually. Funny story from Steve Joyner. When you watch back this episode after it's recording, you'll see in the intro I have a shout out by one Eddie Deason, who is infamous for Grease and for like Critters, and of course he was the voice of one of the characters from like the Powerpuff Girls or something like that, and my wife is a huge Grease fan, and it wasn't until damn near a year later that I've been working with Steve that she discovered that Steve's friends with Eddie Deason. All that time, she never realized that Eddie Deason's the guy that does the shout at the beginning of my show.
So it's like, wait a second, honey.
Yeah.
I don't want to point anything out, but
well, that was my proof to Steve that she don't listen to my show.
That's funny.
Yeah, but yeah, it's absolutely hilarious. I would love to not only be on your show. I would love to just sit down and listen to your show. I'm gonna have to go look it up.
Awesome. Thank you.
Because the simple fact of, like I said, I there's nothing I love more than people talking about things. I don't want to say that they don't know nothing about, but they're learning about. If that makes sense. I don't mean people that just talk out their ass pretending they know what they're talking about. I'm talking about people like they give their opinions or their points of view, and then it's like, no, this is actually how it works. And it's like, oh, one of those deals. You know what I mean?
I always say, and I always thank the guests when I have them on, that the I'm having all the fun. I feel bad because I research the topic during the week. I read all kinds of articles. I pull all kinds of stuff. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to ask about this, or I can't blah, blah, blah. It's as educational. Like, I don't want to say it's educational because then people are like, oh, I don't want to learn stuff. But it's a balancing of humor and educational and people talking about what they're passionate about. and it's an interesting way to, I think, create and have a podcast, because it's you kind of get that initial learning of the surface level stuff, the stuff you could find on Wikipedia or other articles that are already written, and then you bring the expert in and you find out even more. We had a great conversation with a woman from New Zealand about UFOs and abductions and all these UFO things. So hearing some of those stories was awesome. Having what was the other one we did? Ghost. We talked to a ghost hunter. She's been to some of the most haunted locations all over the country, and she invited us to go along with her on a ghost hunt in the West Virginia penitentiary, and we're like, fuck yeah, we'll be there. Please let me know. Like, I want to go ghost hunting with you.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's like that sort of thing where
I'll be on that show. Let me know when that happens.
There you go.
Well, I'll tell you what, I had a random thought that popped into my head. It's a terrible thought, probably, but I have an idea for you to entertain yourself while waiting for the world to come back into some semblance of light.
Yeah.
I myself am guilty of this. I have home video wrestling matches on YouTube that you can find, and I know there's plenty of other wrestlers that have it too. And what I mean by home video means it's that you a friend or family member recorded it, as opposed to some sort of production value.
Right. Okay.
And so there's no commentary. There's the audio is usually very low tech.
Yeah.
I think you, your brother, and your co-hosts, all comedians, and especially since you and your brother had that time of doing this anyway, should kind of Mystery Science Theater 3000 commentate some of these matches. I bet it'd be a hit.
That would be fun. Wild Bill and Mark present. Yeah. That's funny.
Oh, man. Well, we reached that time of the show. Why don't you go ahead and let everybody know where they can get in contact with you or find some of your material, like your podcast that you currently have going on.
Awesome.
And we will go from there.
Yeah. So all my stuff is on Instagram and Twitter at ListRateRank, at BGs and Me, or at Yinza Lucha is my friend Yinza, the Pittsburgh Luchador. And I'll forward you a couple links that you could put on the comment section too. So
yes, that way I make sure it's a description down below. You guys can just click on the links and reach David's stuff there.
Yeah, and there's also kswa.net for the local Pittsburgh Federation that I work with, and hopefully in 2021 we'll be up and doing more shows.
Yeah, maybe one day I'll take a trip out to the loser capital of the world, Steelers. I'm sorry.
7-0, 7-0. What?
I'll tell you the same thing I tell Dallas Cowboy fans when they give a shit about the Eagles only having one Super Bowl ring. Yeah, but we could watch the last time the Eagles won the Super Bowl on DVD. The last time the Cowboys won a Super Bowl, you have to dust off the VHS. Let's just remember that, okay?
That's right. Hey, I have friends from Philly and friends who still live there. So the city is nice.
You don't have to lie on my show.
Well, they might be listening. I hate the Flyers.
Ow! And I'm wearing a Flyers hat.
I know, right? No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Whatever.
I tell you what, I never minded the Pittsburgh Penguins. I respected them. I know it's wrong for a Flyers fan to say, but I actually never hated the Penguins until Sidney Crosby.
He's a very polarizing. Of course, he's beloved here.
He's a douche.
I mean, he's no Alexander Ovechkin. That guy's an asshole. I'll tell you what, who my favorite hockey player is. Rick Tocchet.
Nice. So
I have, Rick Tocchet jersey upstairs. I could have wore. He's Philly boy and came to Pittsburgh. But yeah, like it just, I don't know. Philly, the Flyers and the Penguins are always it's kind of like Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's that rivalry. The Capitals and the Penguins too. Sid, I think, gets a little bit too much harassment about his crybaby stuff.
Is there such thing as too much harassment for crybabies?
Yeah, good point. But
And
you
to be-
know, when you're the best player in the world, you're gonna have people
Oh, come
throwing
on.
stuff from the bottom up at him. So
Come on, best player in the world.
I mean, sure, you're right. Evgeny Malkin might be also the best player, the co-best player in the world.
I know the NHL wants to project him as the next Wayne Gretzky, but he's nowhere near in Wayne Gretzky's league.
Can you imagine if Gretzky or Lemieux would have been able to play in today's NHL with, like, they used to like tackle people back in their day. Like Lemieux wouldn't be able to skate from the blue line without getting tripped or hacked at and things like that. So,
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, Lemieux and Yager, those were the reasons I respected Pittsburgh right there. You just named one of two names that, like, whenever I heard them, I groaned because I knew we were going to get our asses kicked.
yeah, but yeah, Philly, Pittsburgh, we're all right. We're all right. The Steagles, we always have the Steagles, baby.
That's it. But just remember, Philly, Pittsburgh can hate each other all they want as long as we all hate Boston Bruins.
Amen.
There you go. And of course, guys, if you enjoyed this episode in any capacity, hit that thumbs up button, like, share, comment, subscribe. If you prefer it in audio format, just look up Roman and Mist Entertainment on Anchor.fm, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, or wherever quality podcasts can be heard. Guys, thank you very much for hanging out with me. I want to thank my guest, David Fedor, for coming out and spending some time with me. I know he's got to get back to his kids because I'm pretty sure I remember them days. Diapers and bottles are coming up soon. But until then, let me know when you're back in action and your boy's back in action, because I'd love to come see him, or at least let the people know that he's back out in the world.
Yeah.
Till then, guys, I will catch you on the next Breaking the Fourth Wall. Have a good night.